right, so let's get going. So like I say, my name is Brett. I'm one of the founders of Lightning Tools, current CEO, and yeah, we just celebrated our 17th birthday last week. So we are 17 years old in providing different products for Microsoft SharePoint. And of course, we're going to focus in on those products that I just mentioned. So Lightning Forms, also the Form Migrator, Lightning Tools Actions, and the Document Generator. But as a company, we also have a portfolio of different products. What they all have in common is that they all help you to be more efficient inside of Microsoft SharePoint. So whether it is form design and adding automation, or also covering areas such as permissions management, permissions reporting, content reporting as well, or content aggregation. And we also have some data integration and visualization tools, and also finally our discussion board tool as well. So these are all things that are sometimes challenging inside of SharePoint, and that's what drives us to build products that help you to create solutions far more easier, or to get better control over SharePoint using some of our products inside the portfolio. So like I said, these are the 4 products that we're going to focus on. Lightning Forms is going to be the main product that we're going to be taking a look at today. We have a new release which has actually been pushed out already. So that was just pushed out a few hours ago. And so every single feature that you're going to see inside of today's webinar is already available. You can download that from our website, and you can begin using that. If you're an existing customer, you can, of course, upgrade to it. Or if you're a new prospective customer, you could also download a trial of that product and try to or get to grips with it inside of your organization. So we'll have a look at Lightning Forms. We're also going to look at the Lightning Tools Actions and Document Generator, as I mentioned, and also the Kudzu Form Migrator. So to begin with, we're going to start off with the Kudzu Form Migrator. And the reason for that is I'm actually going to use this to create the basis of my SharePoint list, which is where we're going to be doing most of our customizations. It'd be a little bit tiring for you to watch me go through, build a SharePoint list from scratch, define all the columns that I want to create, and so on before I get to customize it. So what we're going to use is the Kudzu Form Migrator, which is a product that is initially designed to migrate InfoPath forms across to other form solutions. We can migrate actually from InfoPath to Power Apps if you like. We can also of course migrate from InfoPath to Lightning Forms, which is what you're going to be seeing today. Equally, we can also take other form designs, not just InfoPath, but maybe also PDF forms. So if you've got some forms that have been created a long time ago, legacy forms like PDFs or even Word documents that could be generated into a PDF and then migrated, we could use those as well. Or if you're using an index or even an image of a form, these are all things that we can migrate across to Lightning Forms, which will of course help you rather than redesign those, recreate them inside of SharePoint. You can use the product to migrate the design, but also bring across any content as well. So if the content perhaps resided in a SharePoint form library, if you imagine the amount of content that you might have that has been generated with InfoPath forms and stored as those XSLT files, we can also migrate that content using the Form Migrator. And something that's relatively new to the Kudzu Form Migrator is also the Form Pilot. It was previously known as the Form Bot. The Form Pilot is an AI tool that allows you to build a form from a command prompt. And that's one thing that you're going to see inside the demonstration today. So let's dive straight into a demonstration. So what we're going to do is just bring up my SharePoint environment here to give you a bit of background as to what we're going to be doing throughout this webinar. We're going to be building on this Learning Central communication site by allowing us to build a training request form. So if you wanted to have some training inside of your organization, that typically has to go through some sort of approval process. So you'd fill out a form, submit the form, and hopefully somebody will approve it and you can go on your training course. So that's the type of thing that we're going to be building and adding to the experience that you get with a Learning Central template for the communication site. So you'll see that I've already got Kudzu opened up here. But before we dive into Kudzu, what I do want to do is just build out a new SharePoint site. We're going to use this existing Learning Central as a sort of Blue Peter version a little bit later on. But before we do that, let's go into SharePoint and build a brand new Learning Central site, just so you see that there's no tricks up my sleeve here when we do a migration. So I'm going to click onto Create a Site. I'm going to choose the communication site template. Of course, you could use this with either a team site or a communication site. I'm going to use the communication site option, and I'm just simply using this Learning Central communication site template here. So we'll click onto Use Template, and let's call this Learning Hub or something along those lines. This is something I've used before. It's got Learning Hub Central. There we go. Hopefully that's unique. There we go. So we've got Learning Hub Central, and we're going to go with the English language, and we'll create our site. And that's all we need to do in order to be able to get a brand new site. And we'll have, of course, the default SharePoint lists and libraries that are provisioned with that site. And we're going to add to that with something that we're going to generate using Kudzu. So I changed the theme color for this one that I created earlier. So that's the blue. You can see the purple is the one that we're going to be using just now. So first of all, I'm going to jump into Kudzu. And from Kudzu, one of the things we could do, as I mentioned, is migrate an existing form design. So if you are an organization with lots of form designs already that you want to get going with those, we could save you a tremendous amount of time there in migrating, like I say, the form design and also the content. So these are the different form designs that we can migrate from. What I'm going to do is go through and initially choose an info path form, just to show you how we could browse out. I'm going to browse out to my desktop and jump into some sample forms here. And we've got one here called employment application. So I'm not going to go through all the way to the end of this one, because we're going to use the bot in order to be able to create that learning request form. But what you'll see here is how I can read in from an info path form design. And this Kudzu tool is going to analyze the form for me, and it's going to read the form, and it's going to give me an expectation as to how successful the form migration would be. So you'll notice in here that we've got the number of views and the number of fields, excuse me, also any rules that are defined inside that info path form. And it tells me that all of those will be 100% migrated. If there was anything that it couldn't do, such as if there was any customizations through VBA or anything like that, then they would perhaps be listed as a to-do item. So it doesn't stop the form being migrated. It may just flag up the fact that this is one thing that you would have to do manually. So if we hit preview on that, what you'll notice is there's the form, and we could push that straight out to SharePoint, and it would use Lightning Forms for that design. So that's one thing that we could do. Let me just go back to a previous step, and instead we're going to use this form pilot. And I'm using this just to save myself some time here, literally inside the demonstration. You'll notice that inside the form pilot, we've got a prompt, an AI prompt, and I'm going to say create. I'll say please. It's always good to be polite. Please create a form allowing training requests within my business. Okay, so there's my prompt. We could also bring in some sample content if we wanted to as well, but let's just go with that. And you can see it's generating a form model, much like it did with the info path. It read it into this uniform, which is an intermediary form design tool, and then it would allow me to push that out to Lightning Forms once it's done so. So we just give that a quick moment to generate that model for me. Kind of hoping it would have done by now. Hopefully I didn't confuse it too much by cancelling out on that info path one first of all. Let's just give it a few more seconds, and if it's not done, then we'll go through and try that one more time. Yeah, pretty sure that's confused things. Let's just one more time go into the command prompt, and I'll say create a form allowing training requests within my business. I'll be less polite this time. Maybe that will do it. Okay, here we go. So it's generating some options and it's come up with a form design here. So you'll notice we've got the ability to work on the form as well as access still to the form pilot, but it has given me a sort of example of what that form would look like. So you'll notice that we've got employee details, including the state as a drop-down choice. I've got departmental details in here. We've got the training details, the course that I want to go on, as well as a reason for training and also the urgency for that training as well. And of course, this is an AI-driven thing, so you could ask that question again, get some slightly different fields, but this is a great head start for what I want to do. So we're going to hit go on that, and it's again telling me it's going to be 100% successful with that, so that's good. Let's just hit close, and what you'll see in here is it creates a solution training request form ready to go. So I'm just going to select that one, and we're going to tell it to write this form out, and we're going to write it out to Lightning Forms. We could write it straight out to SharePoint. If I want to start things from scratch, we could just end up with the SharePoint list and all the columns created within inside that SharePoint list. Or we could use Lightning Forms and it'll actually bring across that form design that we saw as well. I'm going to create a new connection, and the new connection is going to be to this brand new site that we just created. So let's just grab the URL to that, and we'll drop the site URL in here, and we'll just give that a name of Learning Hub Central. I won't worry with the description. Let's just test that we can authenticate with that site and all as well there, which we can. So we'll now hit save and hit go. And that is now going to go through and build out the list for me and also build out that form as well. So that's just saved you some time as well. You're not seeing me go through create a SharePoint list, creating all the different columns that we want to have, and doing all of that work before we actually get into the form design. So let's just hit close on that, and we'll go back to the Learning Hub Central, and we'll go into the site contents. And here under site contents, we can see there is the training request forms that's been generated for me. So we'll navigate to that. Okay, so we've got all of the columns defined by Kudzu, and if we click onto Lightning Forms on the command bar here, you'll notice that we can get straight into the design work and start customizing the new form, the edit form, and the display form, and so on. So we're just going to bring that up for a moment. Let's just hit customize on the new form. And you'll see the design experience that we've got. So it's gone through, created all of those different columns for me. And it's just as it appeared inside of Kudzu, but we're going to want to add a bit more to this in terms of controlling the layout, controlling the logic, and so on as well. So we can do all of that whilst we're here inside of the form design experience. You'll notice that we can also get into the form settings if we want to make this a large form instead of a medium form. The reason why we're going to do that is we've got two columns side by side, so this will just give us a bit more space on the form when we're completing it. But let's hit save and close, and we'll just refresh our page. There we go. The size of the form is cached, which is why I just did a control refresh, and hopefully now if we hit new, you can see here that we've got this form that has come across from that Kudzu design. So we saved a tremendous amount of time there in going through and creating all of those columns manually. All right, so just back to the slides for a moment. Let's just introduce Lightning Forms and the capabilities, and then we'll jump back into this form and start to build out our solution. Just in case you are interested, this was, of course, a very quick demo of Kudzu, the form migration. So if you do want to learn more, there is a QR code which you can scan. I'll give you a moment to do that. That will take you straight to the page on our website that is all about Kudzu, and from there you can book a demo and read more about that product as well. Okay, so onto the Lightning Forms. So Lightning Forms, as you probably already know, is a tool that is integrated into SharePoint. It gives us the ability to design the layout of our forms. We can also not just lay it out in terms of columns and rows, but also we can encapsulate or group together certain fields as well using tabs. We can control when those tabs get loaded and so on as well. So this creates a much better flow to the form. We can add logic in terms of calculations. We can hide fields based on calculated values. We can also disable those fields on calculated values as well. And additionally add automation. So through actions, such as form load actions or action buttons, we can have a series of different actions occur, which of course helps us to do things like approval mechanisms and things like that around the form as well. Additionally, we can add styling. So whilst already it blends itself well with the SharePoint theme that is already applied to the site and so on, we can add additional styling, either just to make them look a bit more attractive, but also we can add like conditional styling as well. So if we want to have things change color or change font size and anything like that based on a previous value, such as whether the field has been approved or not, this is the sort of thing that could actually drive different styles to the form. And all of that can be done code-free, but if you do want to, you can also get into scripting and so on as well with inside of Lightning Forms to do things that perhaps are very unique to your organization. So we'll take a look at all of that. If you've been on one of our webinars before, by the way, what you tend to notice is I go through the sort of intro to the products, and then at the very end, we look at what's new. I'm actually going to throw in, as we go through the demonstration, a lot of the new features as well. And I'll call those out as we see them, so you know what to expect in this new build if you're already familiar with Lightning Forms. So just a few benefits. The form design experience is intuitive. We get that feedback from our customer base as well. They find it extremely intuitive to build forms, not just from people that work inside a technical environment, but also power users of SharePoint can very easily build the forms. And they can do that mostly because of the contextual design experience. So you don't have to be outside of SharePoint in order to be able to build a form. You're in SharePoint, you're designing your form, and once you save it, that form design experience is there immediately for you to test. Just a couple of things around security, because we already get asked them as well. Where is the data stored and where's the data processed? All we're doing here is actually building a new form for your SharePoint list. So the content that is completed or saved from the form layout goes straight into the SharePoint list. And this is a SharePoint framework solution. So all of the design experience is all running client side, and then once you complete that form, you save it, it's processed, it's just becoming data inside of your SharePoint list. So all of that processing and the data is within inside of your environment. So to save talking about all of this more, we'll describe things as we go through the interface. So we're going to jump back into that form, the employee training request form, and you'll see how we can start to add things like tabs, rich text controls. We can change the layout of the form. We can add the automation and so on as well. So again, if you're interested in learning more about this tool in a bit more depth, booking a private demo or anything like that, there's a QR code again that you can scan just there, and we can show that again at the end if necessary. Okay, so back into SharePoint. The form, as I mentioned, that we've got so far has a few fields created for me. It's in a 2-column layout, but it's still not really all that intuitive to complete. So what we're going to do is just close that down. We'll go into Lightning Forms. And when we go into Lightning Forms, you'll see that we've got the 3 different forms that already come with the SharePoint list. So the new form, the edit form, and the display form. We can add additional forms to that as well. So these can be accessed via actions. So notice that if I wanted to have a slightly different display form that maybe showed a subset of items that is specific to a user's role or something like that, similar to where you might have that sort of managers only section or something of a form, we could create that as a separate form and then load it via an action to hide some of that detail if necessary. So we can create new forms from here. You can set those as defaults, or you can customize the existing ones. We're going to do most of the work on the new form. So we'll hit the edit customization. Since I've already customized that, we changed the size of the form. So we're back into that form design experience. And what you'll notice in here in the very top left-hand corner is where we can go through and change that side panel, the size of that one. We can also change some of the settings here in terms of the properties that are shown inside the detail pane. So this is when you're inside the SharePoint list, you select a field, you select a list item, and you see that property pane on the right-hand side. You can actually turn off things like the fields that are being displayed with inside that property pane. So if you've got things that are hidden from certain users, that's a reason to not show them inside that pane over on the right-hand side there. There's also actions we're going to get into. So these are command bar actions and form load actions. The command bar, you see here, we've already got the save and cancel button. So this is where we can create additional buttons with different actions. Maybe creating a submit button for our training form. That can be done there. And the form load actions we can also define. So you'll notice there's a series of different actions there that we might want to fire once the form has loaded. I find this really useful to actually dictate which tab is opened up by default and so on. There's styling, which we'll be getting into. So every part of the form can be styled. You'll notice that Kudzu has actually done a lot of that styling for me already. And then, of course, we can save the design. As we do save it, it's also going to increment the version. So whilst we're working, if we want to revert back to a previous version of the form design, we can do that. And we can also completely uncustomize the form. We can also export the form as well. That's a great way of gaining a backup of the form, but also allows us to save us time later on when we import that form design into maybe the edit form and the display form. So this is all across the command bar at the top. Underneath that, we've got the ability to add different sections. You'll notice that we can add a new section in here. So if I wanted a one column section right at the very top of the form, we can add that. I could then add different controls to that section. So the controls that we can add, we've got all of the fields that are defined inside the SharePoint list that we can add on here. So it'd just be a simple case of selecting which one we want. You notice how that field is then dropped onto the form. If we have an afterthought of I forgot to create a certain field, I can actually go in and add that field at any point. I don't have to go back into the SharePoint list, into the list settings and create a column there. I can just simply do it from here and add that on the fly into my SharePoint list. As well as fields, as we scroll down, you'll notice there's things like data lookup controls. So the data lookup, you'll be probably already familiar with the fact that you've got a lookup column that you can create inside of any SharePoint list. What differentiates this one is the fact that you can look up from a different site. So you can point it at a different site and a different list or library in that site and define which columns you want to look up from there. So that way you can manage a central lookup list that could be used from multiple sites throughout your environment. Let's just drop that one off. There we go. And we've then got other controls like tabs. We've got buttons with actions, toolbars, rich text. There's file viewer, which is brand new. We're going to be taking a look at that one today. So if we wanted to add some rich text, notice that we could use this to add a header. So we could add a header saying training request or something like that, make this styled as a header. And not only can we add some static text like that, but we can also display values from the fields that are on the form using square brackets. So if I wanted to have the approval status, for example, if that was a field, I could drop that on like this inside of the double square braces, and it would dynamically show the value from that field inside the header, which is a great way of sort of surfacing the status of the form. Or you can insert images or get into the source as well. So if you wanted to do something specific with HTML or something like that, you could also do so through there as well. All right, so that's a bit of rich text, and equally in here we can add things like tabs. So like I said, this helps us encapsulate some of the fields. So we could have a personal details or employee details tab. So we'll give that a name. Notice we can select an icon. New feature here, we can also use an existing icon. So we can search the web for icon or get access to those stock images and so on and drop those in as a image. But Lightning Forms also has its own selection of icons which are useful. So if I put people in here, it's quite a good one for this this use. So we can drop that on there like so. Okay, my tab tab appeared somewhere. Let's just reload that. One more time, we'll select the tab, there we go, and call this employee details, there we go. All right, so once we've got our tab, if we wanted to drag and drop the fields into that tab, we can. So we can just fetch them, drop them where we want. So of course, this is now quite a wide form. So what you could also do is change that row configuration depending on how you want that to appear. And that just allows you to very easily put together the form layout that you're after. We can add new tabs and so on by just simply clicking onto that Add Tab button. So at that point, I'm not going to put you through probably 30 minutes of seeing me create this as a better looking form. Let's jump into this one, which is at the state where we've got the tabs and the layout that we want. So let's just jump in to this employee training request form here. So we've already done a lot of the layout work. We've got the tabs in place. We've got the columns in the order that we want. We've got some rich text going on and so on. And you can see how we can sort of position those controls to make a better looking form. These are the tabs that we can go through and select and so on. So we'll start to add some logic to this one. Let's just hit cancel on the form. We'll go back into Lightning Forms. And you'll see that I've only customized so far the new form. So we'll continue that customization and add some logic and so on into this. So one of the things we mentioned was adding some automation, and that's where we're going to start. So under the actions menu at the very top, I'm going to click onto the command bar. And we've so far got a save button and a cancel button. I'm going to add a new button, which is going to be the submit training application. So that's the display name given to our button. And we're going to choose an action for this. I like to choose a send one, little paper airplane. And you'll notice that we've got the visible expression and we've also got the enabled expression as well. So we may not want this button to be clickable all of the time. It might be, for example, that we need to make sure that we've filled out the manager's email address before we can submit it, which would make sense. Otherwise, it doesn't know where to send it. So that's the sort of thing we could put under the enabled expression, make sure that that manager's email address has been filled out. Or we could even make sure that you are a manager and so on. I'll add to some of those in a short while. Let's just go into the configure actions. And inside the actions here, you'll see there's a great big list of different actions that you can do. There's sending emails, there's updating field values, there's opening other forms, refreshing rich text controls, you can redirect to the different tabs that are on the form and so on. You can also loop through different items, etc. There's also variables that you can define. So if we want to create a calculated value that we're going to use as a variable throughout the flow of our form, that's where we can go through and manage those. So we can create a new variable, and we can also export these actions if we want to use them at any point. Something that is brand new is the ability to add a scope. So I'm going to double click into scope here and notice how we've got this scope of controls, which allows me to group certain actions together where we can have a better error handling experience. So one of the things that we used to do might be, for example, that we have a save form first of all, followed by a send email action, followed by a close form. Now there's a lot that could go wrong at each of those different actions. When we save the form, if there's a field that wasn't completed with the appropriate value, that could present an error message stopping the flow of those actions. If the manager's email address wasn't filled out, that could stop the email action from working and so on. So rather than adding error handling at each action, what we can do here is first of all add our save form here. So this is the we're going to save it, and then we're going to send an email message as my second action, and we'll complete that email in a moment. But what we can do with inside that scope is, if this has all been successful, then what we might want to do is show a message to say that it's been successful. So we'll have this as a status notification that shows for 5 seconds with a green banner. And let's just add some text in here as the title, and we'll say successfully submitted your training request. So that's the message that's going to be displayed, and then we can also show another message down here as well that is a failure message. So we'll have an error or a warning, whatever is appropriate, and we'll say, unfortunately, there was an error, and we can explain what that error was. Okay, so there's our error handling all encapsulated within inside this scope, and of course we can add some additional scopes for other actions to group those together as well. So in the email, let's just complete this. We want to send this from a user, of course. The user in this case, using these placeholders over on the right hand side, is going to be the current user. So we can scroll down to the user and notice in here there is under the user section, there's the user's email address. So that's where I'm going to send it from. Who it's going to be sent to is going to be the manager of my department. So in here we've got a email address, which is the manager email address. So I'll just double click onto that one. In fact, that's just going to take the field value. Let's expand. No, that should be fine. Let's just double click onto this one. So that's the manager's email address that I'm going to send it to. Notice in here that we've got the ability to get into JavaScript if we want to, or we can just use this standard sort of assignment where we're grabbing the value of that field. And we can also have a subject. So we'll have new training request and some body that just says, please approve. And in here we could create a hyperlink, we can send attachments, we can show the message before it's sent, and so on as well. But we're just going to keep things simple for this demo. Okay, so I think we're good in terms of that one. So let's just choose OK, and we've got our actions defined. And when we click onto OK, we've now got our submit training application button on the form. And that's appearing at the top there. Okay, so there's our actions. Next thing we'll do is get into some styling. So inside the styling, we can generically change each type of control. So if I just wanted to change the labels, for example, you'll notice that we can get under fields here. We can add a style, attach that to all of the fields. And if we go to the labels, we could maybe change the color to the theme color. Instead of black labels, we can have blue labels in this case. We can even hide the labels if we want to. So that's quite useful if you want to use the rich text instead to maybe create something a bit richer. We could do that instead of the standard label. We can make them bold. We can increase the font size, etc. So let's just make that 12 points and preview it. And you'll notice that all of my labels have increased. So that's making a sort of generic across the board style to each type of control. But underneath that, we can also get into specific styling for each section, each row, and each control. So in row 1, we've got the ability to add a style here. So we might want to add a style for our header. So let's change the background color of that one. Or maybe go with something that's coming from the theme again. So that's what that's going to look like. And if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, I've got an approval status. So the approval status has 3 different values. It could either be approved, it can be pending, or it can be declined. So in here, we're going to add an expression for approval status. Say if approval status is equal to approved, then let's change the color of that one. So we'll change the input color. So the field input color, let's go with sort of pale green. And we'll have a darker green border. And we can also preview that. So this is what the approval status is going to look like should it be approved. So it just becomes a bit more obvious. So that's the type of styling that we can add to the form, which is useful. Other things we can do, we can go into any field on the form. We can configure the expressions. You'll notice that we can configure when these fields are visible, when they're enabled. We can configure initial values. We can create calculated values. And we can also create validation rules and validation text as well. And whilst those can be done on fields, they can also be done on most of the other controls. So I'm going to come down and apply one to this manager tab instead. So we don't want, approval tab. We don't want anybody, of course, approving their own training. That would be daft. So what we can do is go into the properties of this tab, and we always want it visible so that the requester can see whether their training has been approved or not, but we don't want them changing it. So we'll go against the enabled rather than the visible. And in here, against the context objects, under the user again, notice how we can check whether the user is a member of a group or not. That could be a Active Directory group, or it could also be a SharePoint group. And one of the new features for the SharePoint group is there's now an extra parameter to say, do you want to also go a level deeper, not just look inside the SharePoint group, but any nested Active Directory security groups inside that SharePoint group? Do you want to check whether the user is a member of one of those groups as well? So we could change that to true and put in the group name in here, which is going to be training approvers. Okay, so you will only be able to edit this section here if you are a training approver. So that logic has been set there. Another thing we can do is actually embed another SharePoint list. So if we hit the add button here at the bottom, we've had a look at some of these other types of controls that you can add, and further down are other SharePoint lists and libraries. Now, the training has a cost associated with it, but there's also the hidden costs, such as travel costs and so on to get to the training. So we're going to add this additional cost estimate list to our form as well. And we don't just want to see all of the items in that list. We want to create this as a sublist, meaning it has a lookup column. And if I didn't already define the lookup column, I could create one by clicking on that plus. So I'm going to use a lookup column to tie these two lists together. And that's basically going to look up from the title. And it will allow me to also cascade delete if I want to as well. So these will be related costs to this main form. So let's go through and save that as well. And we've now got our sublist embedded on the form here. And you'll notice that the new button will pop out in another side panel once we go through and test this one out. It also has the cost. Now, if we scroll up, notice how we've got a cost of the actual training. So what would be useful here is to actually go in and create a brand new field called total cost. So we'll have that as a number field. And now we can get into the calculated property for our field. And notice that sublists are included in the placeholders. We can get into the sublist, the additional cost estimate sublist, and in here is the cost field where there's some aggregate functions, and one of those aggregate functions is sum. So it's just going to sum up that cost field for me and store that value under my total cost. Now, actually, we don't just want to do that. We want to say that plus cost to include the training cost as well. There we go. Okay, so we'll have the total cost of the training, so aggregating that value up and providing us with that value as well. Okay, so this is a fairly simple form, but what would be perhaps useful if there was an instruction document or something to know how to fill out this form appropriately. So this is a document that does exist. So what I'm going to do is add a new tab, and we'll put training request instructions. And again, we'll select an icon. Should be something like a book or something like that. That will do. And in here, I'm going to add one of the brand new features, which is a file viewer. So notice how we can add the file viewer on here. It can be any type of a file. We're just going to go through and select a file. So I've already popped it into the document library within inside this site. And notice how we've got this training request instruction document. So if I open that up, we can choose what page we want to start on, choose OK, and it will load that document into the form for me. So if ever I want to know how to complete this form, I can just simply jump across to that and read through what's expected of me as I'm completing the form. Of course, that doesn't necessarily have to be an instruction. It could be any kind of document. It could be a PowerPoint presentation. It could be an Excel file, whatever it is that you want to embed on your form. Okay, so this is the type of thing we can do with the form layout. Let's just for now save and close. Before we actually save and close, let's export it. So we'll export that design out. And now we'll go through and save and close the form. Because our next step is going to be to also customize the edit form. You'll notice if I go through and create a new item now, we can fill this out with some information. So I'll put in my name at least, and let's put in my email. No wonder I get so much spam. And then we'll also put in our manager. Doing 10 lighting tools. Okay, so we've got that, and you'll notice there's the approval tab as well. Notice how I can't change this because I'm not inside that SharePoint group, so that's disabled for me. I can't do anything with it. This is the cost estimate. So we'll have a train that I need. That's going to cost me £100 in order to get to the venue. As we've dropped that in there. And let's have a look at the training details. So you can see the total cost is currently 100, but the cost of the actual training is 1,000. And we can choose all of these. So it's a on-site training course. We can choose the date, the location, etc. Okay, and we've got that total cost being displayed here. So if I want to submit that, I can hit the submit training application. Remember, we wrapped these actions in a scope. So we'll just hit that one and it says it's been successful. So we're going to see that green banner for a few seconds. That means it was able to save it. It was able to send the email, and the form has been created. Okay, and there it is. And if we were to navigate to the sublist, we'd also see those items there as well. Now, currently, if I hit the edit on this item, it looks like the bog standard custom form layout. So we're now going to go into Lightning Forms again. Let's customize our edit form. And we're going to import the design from the new form. So it should be there in my downloads. And you'll notice that when we go to import it, we don't have to import everything. I'm actually going to not import the form load actions because one of my command bar actions, because on my command bar I've got a submit form, which doesn't make sense on the edit form. It's already been submitted, so we'll not import that. So let's just go with the rest of it, and you'll notice that we get the same layout, same styling, same tabs, etc. Everything is there included. And before we move on, let's just flick back to our slides because we're now going to introduce the document generator. So document generator is a premium action for Lightning Forms and also Lightning Tools list actions, which you'll see in a moment. What this allows us to do is to generate Word documents from the form or from the list item into a Word document so that it can be emailed out or it can be stored as a record or whatever is required. What is useful is something like a purchase order form. If we design one of those, we may want that to be emailed as an attachment to a supplier or a vendor. We don't want them having necessarily access to the form itself. So that's what we're going to do now. Some good news around, or brilliant news actually, around the document generator is there's actually more value added to this with 2 more premium actions. You'll notice the premium actions over on the right hand side here. So we've had the Word document generator for around about a year or 18 months now. We've now got another premium action, which is merge Word documents, and another one, which is convert to PDF. So all 3 of those actions are now actually included as the document generator. So you'll be able to take advantage of those as well. So we're going to go through and create a document as part of this demonstration. So I've already got a Word document created. Again, just to save some time, let's just bring that up so you can see what it looks like. It is actually the same as what's on the slide here, but this is a Word document, and you can design any type of Word document you like. What just makes it a bit special is the fact that it's got the column names coming from your form created with these square brackets. So notice I can have first name space last name. We've got the address, the city, dear first name, and then we can say whether this has been approved or not inside the body. Okay, so that's how we just go through and map the fields and so on with inside that. So back into SharePoint. On our edit form now, let's add an approval button. So we'll have approve training request. We'll select a little icon, which can just be a little check. And of course, we want to make sure that only approvers can click this. You've already seen that, so I'm going to just skip that step. But let's go in and configure some actions. So the first thing I'm going to do is save. And the next thing I'm going to do is generate a Word document. And what we can do is click onto the upload new template. And here's the training request template that we just worked with. So that's now uploaded here. And then all we do is tell it which item we want to generate from our list into the Word form. So I'm going to go for for a single item. It can work against multiple items as well. Inside the employee training request forms is the list that I want to work with. The item ID is the current ID. So this is just the ID column that you get against every single list item. The target could be save it out to a document library or open it up in a browser. So I'm going to save it out to a document library. So we'll save it into documents. We could put it in a folder if we want to. And then we can also provide a title as well. So I'm just going to call this training request. And to make it unique, I'm just going to put the ID on the back of that with the file extension. Just in case it does exist, we can overwrite it as well. Okay, now if we were sensible, we'd wrap that up in the scope, which you've already seen, but hopefully this will be successful anyway. Okay, so there's our approved training request command bar action. Save and close. And we'll go in and edit this item. I did not change the size of the form, evidently. But let's just hit approve training request. Okay, and we could have added further actions to that. We could have updated the approval field to set the approval status to approved. And we could also given some notification out to the user as well. Let's just discard those changes. That's fine. We'll have a look inside the document library here. And there's our brand new training request 4.docx, which if we open that up, there's our training request. Obviously, I didn't fill out those other fields. It says, "Dear Brett, your training request has been yeah, approved. We should have set that value to approved. You can see it's just returning null for that one. The things you forget when you're demoing, but there we go. Hopefully you can see how that is working there. Next thing we might want to do is, of course, have that as a PDF. So let's just introduce our last product here. So this is Lightning Tools Actions. Now we could use that PDF converter from within inside the form. Hopefully you saw it there as a premium action, but this just gives me a chance to also show it from the Lightning Tools Actions as well. So Lightning Tools Actions, same set of actions that you have inside of Lightning Forms. There's one big difference, is the fact that you can run it from the command bar of a SharePoint list as a command bar button. You can also add buttons onto a page to also call some of those actions as well. So again, let's just jump into it and have a look at it. Basically what we're going to do is go through and add a new action, give it a name. What makes this really unique is the fact that it's not just able to run against a single item like with Power Automate, but you could actually run it against multiple selected items from within inside that list, or even all of the items within the list if you want to. And again, you've got the visibility expression to choose who can run it, or what conditions have to be met before you can run it. So back in the library this time, let's go make sure we haven't got anything selected. There we go. Let's go into Lightning Tools Actions. And we can add a new action. So we'll call this Convert to PDF. We'll choose an icon, and there is one that says PDF, so we'll choose that one. And I want this to run on selected items. We'll configure our actions, and in here, we're going to use the Convert to PDF action. So again, we have to select the list. So I'm going to choose the current document library, working with the current ID as well. Sorry, let me get the right double brackets. And the target, yeah, we could open it up in a browser, or we could save it to the library as well. Let's once again save it to the library. The library we want to save it to is the same one. There we go. So I'll choose that document library, and notice that I can just leave the file name blank, and I'll have the same file name as the Word document. Otherwise, I can specify something different. So we'll choose OK to that one. Let's save that out. Okay, so now we can select our training request, and on the action bar here is our Convert to PDF. So let's just give that a go. Okay, hopefully it's done it. There is actually a refresh, which I should have done as another action. Save me manually refreshing. But there we are. There's our training request PDF. Now all of these could be automated together. So I could have the generation of the Word document immediately followed by the generation of the PDF, or the conversion to the PDF, and then that could have had a send email action to actually attach the PDF. So that's another step that we could also add to this. So if we go into back into Lightning Tools Actions, configure those. Under the send email, we could specify who it's from again, who it's going to, which could be somebody external. And the attachments here, we know what it's going to be called. We can put the training request ID.pdf. And that would be sent out as an attachment along with the email if we did want all of this to be automated and received by that user. Okay, so hopefully that has given you an idea of all the different things that you can do. Let's just have a quick look at what's new, just to summarize those. So the new document generator premium actions, there's two. There's the merge documents and there's the PDF converter. I didn't demo the merge documents, but just describe what it's going to do. You can have it point to multiple document libraries. if you want to, or the same document library, different documents, and it will merge those two documents together. So this is really useful if you've got different things being completed at different stages. If we're routing that document around to maybe get a manager's signature, or if there's several people that need to sign it, something along those lines, we could gather all of that, and then we could actually merge those documents to create the final document before creating it as a PDF, which could be using that PDF converter that you've just seen. We've also got the scope action, which you saw. So this is how we can now group a number of actions together with the improved error handling. So that saves you from having to write a condition against each action and dropping the error that way. We've also got a debug mode, which I didn't get to show you, but just to point this one out, debug mode is something you can switch on inside the action builder. So if you are trying to debug some script or something that you're created inside the action builder, or some camel, we actually have a new camel builder as well inside the lightning list actions. This is a great new release. I'm trying to squeeze everything into an hour here, but yeah, you've got the new camel builder as well. And if you want to debug any of that, you can press F12 on your keyboard, bring up the debug window, and you can debug your actions in debug mode using that action builder. There's also has permission, which is brand new. So you'll notice under the user section inside the available placeholders in the inside the expression builder, we've got has permission, and there's add item, delete item, edit item, and read item. So you can check whether the current user has these permissions before allowing them to do anything. So you're being proactive in your error handling effectively. And then also the checking nested groups is also a new feature of that is member of group, which I mentioned. File viewer control, also brand new. So you can embed documents with inside your form now. And they are the main new features that are being pushed out inside these suites of tools. And of course, the rest of it is going to be appearing inside a blog post, fully written up, so you'll be able to learn all of the smaller ones as well that we've improved upon. All right, at that point, I will open up for questions. I think I saw a couple of questions whilst I was speaking. So I'll go through and read those out if they haven't been already. In the meantime, if anybody does want to come off mute and ask a question, feel free to raise your hand as well, and I can unmute you. Just while we're waiting for you to do that. If anybody is interested in booking a private demo for any of these products where we can go into a bit more depth, feel free to do so. Just scan this QR code, it'll take you straight to the book a demo, and equally follow us. So you'll find we're Lightning Tools in Facebook, LinkedIn, and also on Twitter, or X as it's now called. So if you like to follow us that way, we can notify you in addition to email should there be another, or when there is another webinar coming up. Okay, so in terms of questions, thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Hope you found that useful. So Andrea, does adding scopes improve performance on the form? We have forms with lots of actions on save that can be slow. Yes. So it will improve performance. It also it does improve that handling as well. So it's not having to check the conditions at every single action. You can encapsulate all of those in one. So yeah, you should see some performance improvement there. Yeah, that was one of the reasons for doing it. I see a previous question I think was answered by Sandy. It's one on licensing, which was answered, so you should be privy to all of these inside the chat window. There is a great question here, which I know Sandy did answer, but worth calling out. Can these forms be created against content types as well? Yeah, so if I did enable multiple content types, there would be a content type button that appears on the command bar, so you can specify different layouts for different content types as well. Okay, good one about will it be possible to design more than 3 columns in the future? So that can be sometimes a hindrance. Yeah, as Sandy said, let's consider that one for the future. Of course, you have got tabs as well, but yeah, that's something that we could also look into. But yeah, you're quite right. It is limited to 3 at the moment. Okay, it's another question here. Can these forms be created against? Oh, sorry, that's the content type question. So yeah, the forms can be created against content types. Absolutely. Yeah, that's no problem. All right, I think all of the questions were asked, but if there's any or answered, if there's any questions that you think of afterwards, feel free to reach out to me on brett@lightningtools.com. This was also recorded. It will be posted up on our website, so you'll be able to go to lightningtools.com, click onto the webinars link at the top, and you'll see it there sometime tomorrow, once I've gone and edited out a few ums and ahs. And yeah, if you wanted to then share that with any of your associates or friends, feel free to do so as well. All right, but for now, thank you very much for coming. Next month, we are going to have the data viewer as our webinar, which you can already register for. So it'd be great if we can see you back then. But in the meantime, thank you very much for joining, and thanks for your feedback. It's really appreciated.